Jamuligans, spell like jam, but sounds like hell. Jamuligans, listen along with your friends and fam. It's time to hear from the pastors again.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to JCC Around the World again. And we're here with Jacques Van Wyck. And you might know Jacques from Indian Hills Camp. Him and his wife, Brittany, and his 3 kids were out there for years. And so we're excited just to see what he is doing for Jesus around the world. What's happening?
Hey, guys. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Vic. Yeah, you know, we spent that 6 years at Indian Hills Camp. It was a great learning experience and built a lot of relationships there. But I would even backtrack from there. You know, I was about 24, 25 when I truly gave my life to the Lord.
Let me stop you there before you get into that. Where are you from?
South Africa.
Okay, so you were born and raised there.
That's right.
What city down there?
I was born in Johannesburg, and I lived in Johannesburg, Pretoria, Natal, and Cape Town.
Okay, because I noticed you had a kind of a funny accent.
That's right.
Okay, so
hitting my head on the ground riding my bike.
So did you became a Christian in South Africa?
Yeah, I was raised in a Christian home,
Okay.
but to me it was more of a traditional thing. I didn't really get it, you know, until I made a lot of choices in my life that led me to a point where I was like I hit rock bottom and cried out to the Lord through a simple prayer. And 2 weeks later, I had a plane ticket and I was flying to the States for my 5th trip to America. You know, and this time was different because I truly had experienced the Lord, and everything started changing, man. It was a crazy time. I lost everything. I was dating a girl that I was living in sin with. I had a US paying job in South Africa, so I was making good money. I bought my car cash. I was living in a cool studio apartment in downtown Cape Town, you know, thinking I'm the bee's knees, and felt like the Lord was calling me back to church. And so I went a couple of times, but said, you know, I kind of have a good thing going. I want to stick to what I'm doing. And within 3 weeks, he just took it all away. With that, I prayed a simple prayer, man, like, God, I'm making a mess of my life. Would you please step in and do something? And overnight, things started changing rapidly. I had been denied for a visa to come to the States because I've had so many visas, and what's happening in South Africa, they know and understand that people are leaving the country in droves. And so I felt this feeling in my heart that I was like, I need to go to the consulate and apply for a visa. Even though I knew the guy in the consulate, he told me not to bother to apply. But I just had to follow through, you know, this crazy thing. And I remember that morning, and I woke up, I had a big old smile on my face. And I was thinking to myself, my world is a mess right now. Like, everything collapsed. I have no job. I have nowhere to live. This relationship that I was in that I thought would lead to marriage ended. And yeah, what am I going to do? And why am I so happy? Like, I had this smile stuck on my face. And I was walking down to the US consulate, had all my paperwork with me. And the sky was bluer than it ever was before. The trees were greener than they were before. The birds were chirping louder than they ever did before. And I get to the consulate and I hand him my paperwork, and he looks at me like, what are you doing here? I told you this is not going to work. And I was like, I don't know, man. And I just kept smiling, you know, felt like they're going to throw me out just because I look weird. And I sat down, and he called me up. They called me up, and she said, sign here and go pay for your visa for the States. And I was stumped. I was like, are you sure? Are you for real? And she started getting irritated with me, like, move along with the process. You need to go and pay for your visa. So I did. The same guy that told me not to apply told me, like, he just gave me this look, and he went into the back room to go talk to these people, came back, gave me a passport with my visa in it. And I just remember I walked out into that sidewalk of the US consulate in Cape Town, South Africa, and I was laughing and I was crying at the same time, because I realized, man, I just encountered grace like I've never known before. And the Lord had blessed me with something that's a heart's desire to live in the US in a time, in a place where I least deserved it. so on that sidewalk, I committed my life to the Lord, and I said, whatever you want, Lord, whatever you want to do with me, I am yours. Do whatever you want. And so, yeah, that's been a 16-year-long, like, wild ride. Talking about living by faith, you know, I came to the States. I had a small backpack, a pair of rollerblades, and $300 in my pocket, and no plan whatsoever. Hopped on an Amtrak train from the East Coast, ended up in California, ended up in San Diego, of all places, and went to Balboa Park Chapel, a little church out there. I spotted it on the Saturday, skating around, just exploring, and I was like, I'm going to go there on Sunday. I have to go to church. At that point, still, my understanding was God was only in the church, so I better go to church so I can encounter God. And I remember at the end of the service that I just couldn't leave the church, and I just stood there awkwardly in the back, like weird, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, and I can't leave. And finally, this guy approached me. His name's Trevor Davis. And he befriended me and, you know, invited me to an after church little gathering and kind of started there. And eventually I met you at that church. There was a homeless ministry event that you were doing, I want to say weekly, every Friday.
I think we did it Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.
Wednesdays, okay. And we'd feed them and share the gospel, guaranteed every Wednesday. Yeah, so it's been a wild ride, man. And then, of course, eventually I finally met my wife. We've been married now for, I think, 13 years. And
get that straight. You better get that straight.
I struggle, man. I get in trouble with that a lot. And as soon as we got married, we knew we wanted to be in full-time ministry, but we didn't know which avenues. We thought, okay, obviously the church, we need to get involved with the church. So we're serving at church. But my wife was working at Starbucks in Rancho San Diego. And she encountered these young students that would come and apply for a Starbucks job. And she's like, man, they're like really on fire for Jesus. And they're really hard workers. Like they have really good work ethic. I don't know where they're coming from. And so finally she figured out, oh, they come from some little camp up in the hill in the mountains known as Indian Hills Camp. So I looked it up and then I applied for their maintenance director job. It's not my world, you know, but I was like, I'm just going to apply and see what happens. And a couple of days went by, I got an email response that said, you don't qualify for this job. I was like, yeah, I kind of figured that. But then, you know, 2 weeks later, they called me back, or it was a couple of months actually. And they said, hey, we can't seem to throw away your resume. Like there's something there that we feel like we're supposed to do with. And so why don't you come in for a screening interview and we'll see what God wants to do with that. So I went in, I had like a three-hour interview. And through the process, realized I'm going to give them my wife's resume too. And so I got home and told my wife that. She's like, that's not how it works. You don't just give them the resume as well. I said, okay. And I said, I did it anyways. And then they brought us in for a couple interview as a couple. And then, you know, hired us to start up their gap year program. And so that's how we got into camping ministry. Never even really knew that camping ministry was a thing. I didn't really go to a whole lot of camps, you know, obviously in South Africa, a couple of camps here and there.
Yeah.
Didn't know that was like a ministry avenue.
That's cool. So, yeah, the Indian Hills has that little track out there, little BMX track. And then I know even I got sucked into the mountain biking a little bit out there because everyone had a mountain bike. But so that's where you kind of got into riding mountain bikes or having a mountain bike or?
I actually started, I rollerbladed like crazy in South Africa. And then I was like, man, rollerblading is really hard on my body and my knees and my joints. I should switch to a mellower sport. And so mountain biking was my choice. So I went with a cross-country mountain bike in South Africa. And then when I got to the States, I bought like a real bike, dual suspension bike. And I was taking that thing everywhere. That was my commuter to work. It was my trail machine. It was everything. And so at Indian Hills, we finally got to build a rad pump track, cool little track there with Devin Schneider. And that was a cool little ministry opportunity to get to tie in mountain biking and ministry, which is something I always wanted to do. And long story short, it actually led me to the next camp. Obviously, in the process, I was gaining all this camping ministry experience. going from the maintenance side to housekeeping, to supervisor, to going into the program department, running programs and teaching classes and doing all these things. But my heart was still like, what do I do? How do I incorporate bicycles and evangelism? And so for my biblical studies through Calvary Chapel Bible College, instead of doing my practical hours over at a church, I looked up ministries that were affiliated with that. And so I found this camp in Texas, and there's one in New Mexico, Camp Eagle and Glorieta. And so they do mountain bike races on their Christian camp property. And then they just minister to all the riders that come out. So I emailed them out of the blue and said, hey, can I come and like volunteer during one of your races? And so this guy, Kyle, Crazy Kyle, he called me. He's like, dude, yeah, totally, come on in, you know. And so I flew to Texas and I did this race. There were like 700 people at this race. And it was a cool experience. And, you know, one thing led to another through lots of communication with the executive director, sharing some ideas and stuff there. They hired me on as an individual camp director there. And I got to start up Bike Week, which is inviting kids that are really into bikes. There's a lot of cross-country racers and enduro racers that would come to the camp, and we train them up because Camp Eagle has some really gnarly terrain. Funny enough, there are actually good-sized hills in Texas. It's not just flat. And got to like coach these kids at a summer camp, a week of summer camp, you know, and so we did that a couple of times over. Yeah, so that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah, so yeah, over the years, just supporting you guys at JCC, and Brittany as well. She went to work working with Kids at Heart, where Josh Rasmussen was also working for a period of time. And then so she's still involved. She's still involved in some of those camps and that experience.
That's correct. So my wife is the benefits administrator over at Glorieta and Camp Eagle camps. It's called Shared Services, and so she does that for both. Through Christian Health Ministries, that's like the medical service basically for all of the full-time staff.
Okay.
So she takes care of all of that. And then JCC supported us over at Indian Hills camp as well. That was like a missionary type of a position.
Okay.
That's why we worked there. Yeah.
Yep. And so yeah, Brandon, who started Camp Royal, and so I met him so many years ago. I don't even remember, but it was over 10 years ago, I think, the first time I met him easily. And I remember this guy, he gets up and he says, I have a vision for this action sports camp, and it's going to be the first of its kind. And, you know, and I talked to him for a while. So what do you have? And he's like, nothing. I got nothing, you know. I'm just like, wow, this guy. Oh. And even just for years, I would see him in different places and he'd be like, I'm working on this camp. Like, okay, still working on it. He's got nothing. But then now it just started to unfold. It's so exciting to see when someone has a vision and they just continue to walk forward in faith. And so Brandon started this Camp Royal, and you guys, how did you guys end up there?
Man, so Jay Kinney is a guy that has done events with you as well, and he was a buddy of mine, and we rode together in places in San Diego.
Yeah, I'll say, and Jake, man, I've known him and his family, like they were just like, he was just like a little dude. Yeah. And he would come over to our house. We had a Bible study over there. I don't remember what day Wednesdays, Thursdays. But yeah, he was just this little guy with his big bike. But they would come over and ride. So it's just crazy to see like God using people for so many years. It's so great.
All these people through all these relationships, man. Yeah, he called me out of the blue and said, hey, Camp Royal, my buddy Brandon, they're looking for a site director. You're the guy. He asked me for multiple people to refer, but I said, no, I'm just referring one guy. You're the guy. You're the guy. Well, it's a lot of pressure, man. And so I called Brandon up, and, you know, a couple of months of conversations, and it was wild because we're part of a great ministry in Texas, but part of the process was that we would eventually then move over to Camp Glorieta in New Mexico and start an action sports section of their camp there. And then COVID happened, and COVID set that camp way back all the way to basically a startup camp financially. And so that the hopes of that happening after 2 to 3 years was snuffed out. So I said, okay, Lord, I guess I'm in Texas long term. It was never on my bucket list, but cool, I'll do ministry here for however long you have us here. And then, probably a month or two after I truly made peace with that in my heart, is when the Lord brought up this Camp Royal thing through Jake. And it was definitely not something that I had expected. I feel like Jake mentioned it to me before, but I didn't even look into it, And this time I called him and the conversation sparked up, and one thing led to another. And 3 months later, we moved ourselves over to West Virginia. And it's all about, skateboarding, rollerblading, scooters, and bicycles. And we have a facility here that, it's not massive. We have this old school building that was dilapidated and has been transformed into 2 indoor skate parks, an outdoor skate park, a dirt pump track, got all these jumps and stuff in the woods. We have an FNB contest coming up in May, within a month of today. And then our property is right next to Bechtel Summit, which is a 10,600 acre Boy Scout facility. And they have the second largest concrete skate park in the world. Then the third largest BMX track facility on their property, 36 miles of mountain bike trails, professionally built by Gravity Logic, all this fancy stuff. It's mind blowing to go up there. And part of the process for Royal was that they were going to have that as their facilities. And it took 4 years. And I basically cheated. I showed up a month. And within 2 weeks of me being here, that all got signed and it's done. And we are taking campers there this summer 4 times a week. So, you have no idea what the Lord's plan is for you. And so many of the jobs I've had, man, I worked in carpentry. I worked for a guy with a heavy old trucking company in San Diego. All these really random jobs that kind of didn't make sense to me. Lord, what's the point of this? And year after year, I would ask those questions and I would reach out and try to dive into ministry opportunities and things. And he would just shut those doors.
Yeah.
And all the while there was learning, teaching me all these things. Things happened at Indian Hills Camp that pushed me into a position that I wasn't ready for. Be the stand-in temporary director there that just taught me so much. And then the opportunity then came available in Texas and just gave me so much more, tools in my tool belt to then be able to step into this position and still just always learning more things, but picking up tricks and tools along the way that the Lord has now ingrained in me to be able to step into this part of this ministry. And I'm barely in West Virginia, and the church that I'm affiliated with, iHeart Church, the doors are opening up for prison ministry, like we were just talking about earlier. And I got in contact with this guy, Jeremiah, and he's getting me in contact with all these other people that the doors are just open. We get to go to the prison soon as the COVID restrictions drop, and go and minister to these folks and then invite their kids to camp through Angel Tree Ministries and Prison Fellowship. I mean, it's blowing my mind as to how much is happening right now in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. And and it excites me too, because that's our heart for sure. And I haven't been to Camp Royal yet, but a lot of my team guys have been out there over the last couple of years and are going this year as well. Hopefully I'll make it out this year. But yeah, just prisons are huge, and unfortunately, but there's just so many guys and there's so much need for the gospel and good news. But yeah, just what you were talking about, and just the Angel Tree Ministries, not just giving these kids presents, but also offering them the greatest gift of the gospel, and just to be able to even go further with the kids and bring them to camp. And we're just fired up about the prisons for sure. It's a great opportunity for the gospel and then extending to their families. Huge deal. So that's amazing. For people who don't know, that Boy Scout camp, and I've known about that for years because of Brandon, but man, big deal. That's big stuff and huge opportunity for, it's crazy.
this little group, we get to go in. They swung the doors wide open and
Yeah.
said, "Come on in and use our facilities and
Yeah.
do
And
what."
the way the Boy Scouts have been over the years, they don't even use it really. It's just
Right.
like this annual events they do. And so it could be a
Mhm.
huge thing that God does in that. So, well, that's just a great catching us up on what you've been doing. But just to close it, just kind of give me some encouragement, give all of us some encouragement. We were talking about this, just walking by faith, and you kind of mentioned it. God uses all of the things in our life to
Mhm.
help us in what he has planned for us. It says that he has laid out good works for us to walk in them, right? And he's
Amen.
going to
Yeah.
complete the work that he has begun in us, and he has this strategy for our life. And but everything takes faith. And
Mhm.
especially sometimes, especially like when you have a family to support, you have your wife
Mhm.
that's working with you. And so some of the decisions seem crazy, but when we know that God has already laid out plans, we can walk easier. But what would
Mhm.
your little sermonette be for somebody who's watching this and says, I want to do something by faith for the kingdom, and now's
Mhm.
the time that I would do that? What would you tell them?
Man, it definitely is it's a hard road, but it's an exciting road. It's adventures with Jesus. Um, it's walking by faith, knowing that he has that plan and trusting that he's going to bring it to fruition. He who has begun a good work in you will bring it to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. I also think, Galatians 2:20 is like my verse, man. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. Like, I have to go back to that verse almost daily, because if I look at my surroundings and I look at my situation, sometimes I don't understand how anything's going to come from it and how anything's going to work out. I have three little kids that I have to take care of, my wife, and but you just see the Lord work, and he gives you these little nuggets along the way that you're like, I'm still going in the right direction, I'm still going in the right direction. Don't give up, don't give up. And sometimes it's almost like he wants you to give up your desire in something, so that he can give you his desire that's far greater than anything that you could ever have come up with on your own.
Right.
And so I would say, man, stay the course. Just stay the course. You have to have your verses that the Lord has given you, that will speak truth to you year after year after year, especially
Mm,
when hardship comes and the trials and the tribulations, and we're guaranteed that we will have those. And then the enemy is going to come along and he's going to try to mess you up too in the process, but you just stay the course. I like to keep things simple as possible. And so that's why I just hang on to those core verses, that gets me through those times. And when
mm,
I'm like ready to give up, then thankfully, I have a wife, my better half, and the Lord will give her wisdom and verses and whatnot to speaking to me when I'm like, I'm throwing in the towel, this is not working out. And then vice versa. And so we can like lift each other up. But I must say now, looking back over the past 16 years, seeing what the Lord has done, it is so worth it to stay the course.
mm,
Keep
yeah.
walking the walk of faith, because he has a plan, and he's incapable of making any mistakes.
Right.
And so you can trust him for that, and just walk alongside with him, even though if it doesn't make any sense, even if the money isn't there, if the resources aren't there, it's okay. He's going to bring them. You don't know where they'll come from. It'll come out of the blue. That's all right. Just trust him. It's coming.
Man, yeah. It's one thing to say, it's another thing to live it, because once you see it, you go, it works. He will take care of it. I think one of the things you said that stands out to me, and we've been talking a lot about this lately, especially this year, but being in the word is how we
Mhm.
know the promises. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of promises,
Right.
and knowing the promises is the first step to being able to hang on to them. If we don't know those
Mhm.
promises, then we can't hang on to them. And
Right.
so just being in the word and digging for our own lives to find those promises, like, this seems like a good idea, God, but what do you have to say about it? And
Mhm.
and he says, trust me, trust me, trust me.
Right.
Follow me. And so, yeah, knowing his word, trusting his promises, that's a good word. So that's great. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited, super pumped to hear what God is doing. I'm sure everybody else that knows you here will be excited as well. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah, man.
Hit that airbag.
That's
Get that
right.
triple flip going. Let's go.
That's right, man. Come out and play.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So
And then
if
as soon
anybody
as
wants to stay in touch with you or support you guys, how do they do that?
just hop on our website. We have a newsletter there. It's called weareroyal.com.
Cool.
And so lots of things happening on there as we're trying to, get into the prison ministry side of things. Hoping to reach out and get connected with Vic and the stunt dudes and lots of other action sports avenues to help spread the word of Camp Royal, and inviting kids of all backgrounds and all ages to be able to come out and experience action sports, whether it's the first time trying it out or if they're really into it and they're learning the triple flip.
Yeah.
That's cool. We have the place for them, man.
Yeah, and the whole point is like that once we're children of God, we're royal. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we're a royal priesthood, man.
That's
Amen.
awesome. All right. Well, it's good to get an update, and hopefully we'll keep praying for you, and we'll talk to you soon.
You've just listened to Jamuligans, a podcast of Jamul Community Church, the church home you've been looking for. Come back next week for more from the pastors.